All right. Hello. Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Tips for Confident Norwegian. And this time we'll be talking about mindfulness. Paradoxically, talking about mindfulness today, I ran a little late, so sorry about it if you've been waiting for me. I did manage to send out an email about this live stream, which made me late. So anyway, but I think that if you've been following me for some time, you kind of know what I am. So you have to take it like that. So talking about mindfulness in learning Norwegian was actually an idea of an amazing student of mine. So this is a topic that has been pointed out to me to talk about like this. And he's attending my coaching group, Speak Norwegian with Confidence, right now, where we have a number of lessons about learning principles and, for example, about habit building in learning Norwegian. Because for many of us, the problem is not that we wouldn't understand something or that we wouldn't maybe, I don't know, study enough vocabulary or something like that. The problem often is that we do not have the right habits in place, that we don't know how to listen efficiently, that we not know how what to listen to and how much and things like that, right? So sometimes it's not the practical things, it's not like things fixable with a hammer, it's very often things that are inside of us, our attitudes, our beliefs about ourselves. That's super important. And he was listening to some of these lessons that we had that week, and he was like, well, Anishka, I'm just wondering when you will start talking about mindfulness as well. And I was like, you know what? I think I should. I haven't been talking about it as such, even though I talk a lot about linguistic awareness and kind of noticing things. And like, basically, I talk about it, but I never called the spade a spade, right? And so he got me to this idea of really talking about it. So thank you, shout out to you, and let's go. I was meaning to put the link to the waitlist for the coaching group in the description, which I haven't, as is my habit, unfortunately, but I will put it in the comments, right? So I will put in the link to the waitlist for the next round of this coaching group, and I will also put in a link for a self-paced course, Dare to Speak Out in Norwegian, which includes a number of these things as well. So deep dives into these more nuanced or more like, let's say, self-developmental topics that we need to cover if we want to become successful language learners and start speaking Norwegian with ease. Yeah, it really is important. All right, so I'll put these in the comments since I forgot to put them in the description. And now, mindfulness. There are many definitions. It's a bit of a buzzword. So what really is mindfulness? So I was Googling for definitions, and the first one that comes up for me says that it is a type of meditation in which you focus on being intensely aware of what you're sensing and feeling in the moment without interpretation or judgment. This particular definition is from the website of the Mayo Clinic, of all things, but the definitions are similar, right? It's like the Wikipedia, for example, says that it's a cognitive skill usually developed through meditation of sustaining mental attentive awareness towards the contents of your mind, yeah, and of your surroundings. So it's about noticing, it's about awareness. And how does this relate to learning Norwegian? Does it even? Yeah. And I think this is the basic mistake in viewing the task of learning Norwegian, when so many people and so many teachers would see these things as unconnected, when really they are so connected. Yeah, it's more connected than anything else. And really, this kind of awareness, having it or not having it, is sometimes what makes the difference between somebody who is successful as a learner of Norwegian and somebody who isn't and can't figure out why. Yeah. So I would like to touch upon, let's say, two areas in which mindfulness is very important in learning languages, in learning Norwegian. And the first of them would be like the that, let's say, the attitudinal or the belief level role that mindfulness would play in this. And the second one would be more technical, like how you employ it in particular learning techniques, how it helps you in the process. So let's look at the fundament first, because counterintuitively, maybe, the level of your beliefs about yourself as a language learner and how you approach the task, your overall attitude, is the most predictive thing of whether or not you will be successful. The techniques, like if your attitude is in place, you will do well even with inferior techniques, right? So techniques are important. It's good to have the right ones in place, but your attitude does come first. It's very, very important. And how can mindfulness help with this? Well, greatly. Because what I always recommend, and what I was talking about with the participants in my last free program that I ran almost a month ago now, was that you have to learn to be a descriptivist about your learning process. And almost none of us are. It's maybe not possible to be truly a descriptivist, meaning only describing what is rather than what quote unquote should be. It's probably not possible for us to be descriptivists 100%, but let's say at least 80%, because most of us are 0% descriptivists and we're just like should and shouldn't. Yeah, that would be called a prescriptive view. So many of us, I would dare say most of us adult learners with ambitions, with being used to doing well in your career, expecting a lot from yourself, a lot of us go like, oh, I should be able to do this. I should be, like, I've been living here for 10 years. I should be able to, whatever, fill the blank, right? And this is what does a lot of damage to your actual progression, to your actual results. Because when you kind of get attached to this idea of what should be the outcome, you are missing the things that are. And the things that are, that is mindfulness, isn't it? And this works on many levels, because if you want to get rid of this I should, and rather focus on what is, as in, this is difficult for me, right? It just is, no judgment. You first have to notice that you're doing it, right? And this is when mindfulness comes in very handy, because it's actually the only way of doing it, of noticing it. And sometimes I play this game with my students, especially in one-on-ones when there is time for it, right? That we would talk about something, that something difficult would come along in the Norwegian thing. And then these students of mine would be like, oh, I know we were doing this. I should know it by now. I should, or like, I can't do whatever. And I'm like, limiting belief right there, isn't it? Right? Or like, no shoulds, no shouldn'ts. You just can't do it right now. That's it. Yeah. Be the descriptivist. Super difficult for us, super difficult. But if you don't have a teacher to point it out to you like that, like, you're doing it, you're doing it, you're doing it, you have to point this out to yourself. And even if you do have a teacher who is a bit of a coach and who tells you like, okay, when you say I can't understand grammar, when you say I have bad memory, when you say things like that about yourself, this is not true. This is a story that you're telling yourself. It's based on some evidence or something that you perceive as evidence, but you're extrapolating here, right? It's not like it's always, you're just noticing selectively the things that kind of agree with your previous hypothesis about it, right? So this is not the truth that you're telling yourself, but you're telling it to yourself anyhow. And it's very important if you want to learn to speak Norwegian, right? If that's the goal, and not just to prove yourself right, which is what we people often like, but your goal is to learn Norwegian, isn't it? To speak with that confidence. So we need to have that other incentive of being right. Like I told you I couldn't do it, right? That kind of right. We need to let that go, and we need to focus on the actual goal. And to be able to do that, we have to be noticing like this. And it takes a lot of awareness, and there must not be any judgment. Because if you start judging yourself for it, instead of judging yourself for not being able to do the grammar, or you can upgrade and judge yourself for like both at the same time, right? This doesn't work. So this is where mindfulness really, really comes in. You need to catch it in the moment and be like, interesting. And maybe notice like, what was it that triggered it in me? Because this is very good data. This is good data that will help you to actually get out of it. I just want to share a story here that I'm thinking about my son, which is very relevant. It's funny, but it's not that funny if you think of it. Yeah. So this thing that I was saying, like we people, we like being right. We like to be proven right. So if my belief is that I can't do it, and my teacher says like, of course you can do it, and I'm like, no, I actually can't do it, right? And so what do you want? Do you want to nail it, or do you want to be proven right that you couldn't do it in the first place? So there was this episode where I have a 6-year-old at home, almost 7, and he's a normal kid, right? So the thing that was happening was he was having like an emotional breakdown around something of the sorts of not being able to fit in his sweatshirt into his jacket, something like that. And he was really like physically getting upset about it, and it was a bit of a drama. And I was like, so can I help you? What can we do? We can fix this, right? We don't need to panic about this. We can fix the thing. Can I help you? And he was like still panicking. And many of my adult students tell me like, you're a super patient teacher. And I think they're right. I'm patient in that context, but I'm not very patient with my kids, right? That's something completely different. That's hard for me. And my frustration threshold is quite low. So I was like getting frustrated. He was panicking and I was getting frustrated. And I was like, you know what? Do you want to fix this, or do you want to maintain the drama? And that was a dramatic question in itself. I wasn't expecting any answer. And he actually stopped at that question. He considered it, he gave it a thought, and he was like, I want the drama. And I was like, are you kidding me? And we laughed at it, and actually it did fix the situation because it threw us out of it. But it made me think, like we adults as well, we humans, so often we choose the drama, don't we? And with Norwegian as well, like we want to be proven right. We want to be like, we want to suffer in a way. And that's want in quotation marks, of course. This is not something you want with your conscious mind. But this clever 6-year-old of mine, he was like, Mom, I choose the drama. So now we laugh at it. And sometimes he would tell me like, Mom, I think you're choosing the drama, But in order to be able to not choose the drama and rather choose the solution, you need to apply this mindfulness principle and really like ground yourself in the moment, describe it, not judge it, and be like, this is what's happening. And this is what I think triggered it. And this is how I go forward. Yeah. So that's that. So let me just refer to my notes so that I don't leave anything out. Yes. And also I would like to say that here it also attaches to your identity, of course. I talk about that a great deal, that even if this identity, this belief that we have about ourselves is negative, it's a bit of our identity and we cling to it. So many of us have this identity of like, I'm an idiot, right? When it comes to grammar, when it comes to my memory is so bad, like my brain is like a sieve, everything just, like I learned the vocabulary. And number one, telling yourself these stories or repeating these things out loud at first is not helping you. Number two, it's not the truth anyhow. This is extrapolated and like is just selectively focusing on that kind of evidence that you want to see, right? It's based on your belief. And number three, like when you notice it, the non-judgmental element is so important so that you can release it, right? And if you don't release it, if you're like, no, I am an idiot, right? How do you think you're ever going to learn Norwegian? Yeah. Or if you're like, no, I can never do this. I'm the kind of person who has trouble learning languages. That's also when the mindfulness comes in and you notice that you are saying this, that you are thinking this, that you are believing this even. Because the stupid thing about beliefs is that we can't really see them, like, until somebody points this out to us, or until we have enough of that awareness that mindfulness practices bring along. We don't know, right? We don't know what we have been basing our actions upon all the time. And it's very important to know. So that's like the foundational stuff that we really need to get in place if we want to really succeed with our Norwegian. I suggest, excuse me for a minute, maybe you can hear it. We have some construction work in here. I'll just close the door. I'll be right back with you. All right, that's better. That's better. You see, I'm really live in here today. All right. So I think I said all of this when it comes to this foundational thing. And this is what we very commonly do not connect with learning Norwegian, do we? Learning Norwegian, that's like the grammar, it's the vocab, it's understanding, it's the listening exercise, it's the norskprøve. But is it really this as well? Yes, it is. Because if somebody is a successful language learner, then they have a set of beliefs of themselves in place that support that. Yeah, they do. I know it because I do. I have a lot of very shitty beliefs about myself in some other areas that I'm working with. And I see that if I release some of that, it's really helping me to do much better, like to choose the results, the goal instead of the drama, right? Versus in learning languages, I've always had the good beliefs in place that were helping me along. Yeah. And that my parents planted in me as a kid, by the way. Like they believed it, they thought it, and they told me, and I just overtook it. So anytime something went wrong with me in languages, I was like, probably I'm not using the right technique because like I'm good with languages. So even when I had inferior results in some respects, I wouldn't believe it was me because I thought I was a good language learner. Yeah, so this is really, really powerful. Anyway, moving on. And I want to talk about the other area in which mindfulness is very important in learning Norwegian and in learning to speak in a way that's natural and effortless. And that's what most of my students want anyway. And this is a bit more technical, but it's equally important as the foundational thing. And here there are two main aspects. Number one is controlling or being aware of your emotions and your reactions on the spot when applying learning techniques. And the other one is focusing on the linguistic form of things. So that's not this last one is not mindfulness in broad sense, but mindfulness techniques are very, very useful in achieving this, right? Because if you train your mind to be mindful, then you have an easier time in a way deciding where to put your focus. Yeah, your focus doesn't go just somewhere without you knowing where it's going. You can direct it more easily if you have practiced this. So, controlling your emotions or being aware of your emotions when applying study techniques. I am a lot about listening. I teach about how to use listening in learning. I teach about massive consumption of Norwegian input. That's the thing that will teach you to speak naturally, to pull out phrases that you don't know you have studied because you didn't study them, you picked them up, right? This is super important as a supportive mechanism and as the main source as well. So you can both get the revision and the number of iterations of the things that you studied through listening or reading, it could be, and it acts as a direct source for you to pick up from. So it works on both levels. But the mindfulness, I have a lot of students, or I have met a lot of students who have, for example, a lot of panicking going on when you start playing a listening exercise in class. And there is no wonder, because many a time the listening exercise in class, it looks like a test. It feels like you're being tested. Many people panic from this. And if you want to use listening or reading for learning, not for testing yourself, you can consciously test yourself. Or maybe you are taking norskprøve and then you have to accept that you are being tested and prepare for that. That's another thing. But when you're using it, like the bulk of it, to learn, you need to be at ease you need to feel comfy, and you need to be a descriptivist, like we were talking about. Because if you're listening to something and in every sentence you're judging yourself for not understanding, you're panicking that you didn't understand enough, this kind of thing, it's not gonna work for you because you're not open. And you need to be open and relaxed so that your mind can kind of bathe in it, and also so that you do not activate your affective filters. Yeah, we're not talking about those today, but of course this would be the result of you maybe getting anxious about it, or panicking, judging yourself, being immersed in your shoulds and shouldn'ts, and all the stuff that we so commonly do. So you need to be really, really neutral. And in order to achieve this, you need to be noticing that stuff, right? So if you're listening to something and suddenly you notice that your body is like that, ooh, and you're all like, your muscles are tense and your breath is shallow, and you're like, okay, I think my body is pumping a lot of adrenaline in here, then the mindfulness again comes in place, right? Because you need to take a deep breath, you need to focus on like releasing this tension, and maybe also wondering without judging about where it came from. So like, why is it I started playing this listening exercise or this podcast episode, or I put on this Peppa Gris episode on NRK TV, whatever, right? And it made me pump adrenaline in my body. So like, where is the saber-toothed tiger here, right? Where is it? And I'm making fun of it, like there is no saber-toothed tiger, but there is something, there is a reason why you're doing it. And maybe something comes in mind that is it. Maybe that's a good thing to think through, or to talk about with somebody to be able to release it. Maybe just realizing it will release it on its own. Maybe you don't have to figure it out, but you have to notice that you're doing it. Because if you're doing it, and doing it in quotation marks, right? Because it's something that's happening to you rather than you doing it, you can't really be open, you can't really be relaxed, you can't really take in as much as you can from that listening exercise, right? Or from that listening source. So that's very, very important, to be able to use listening or reading for learning, that you are able to maybe not flat out control in the first round, but being aware of what your body is doing, what your breath is doing. Like if you are okay, if you're emotionally at peace, or if you are not. And then maybe breathing it through and getting rid of it, yeah, if possible. So that's one thing. And then the other thing, which is even more technical, and as I was saying, this is not mindfulness as such, but mindfulness techniques are really, really, really useful for doing it. I always teach about learning from your listening or learning from your reading. And when you do a normal course, like a typical Norwegian course, you would have the form in the textbook, like this is the grammar, this is what the structure looks like, this is your vocabulary list. And then it would say a listening exercise. And the tasks that you get for the listening exercise, they are focused on the meaning, on the contents of it only, often only. So you would get these quiz questions, for example, or you would get this like, who says what? And obviously, it's important to understand what people say. And when you take norskprøve, then in the listening part, this is what you're being tested on. Yeah, do you understand? If I ask you, if I quiz you in this way, can you answer based on the listening? And I'm not saying this is not important, but it's not the main thing, paradoxically, and this might be a new concept for many people. This is not the main thing when you are using listening as a study technique. And we should be using listening as a study technique because that's what we do, right? That's what we do as kids when we learn our first language. And that's our biggest success with languages, typically, right? Our first language. And we learn that through listening. And of course, if the content is comprehensible, that gives the best results. But if we are not able to notice and isolate the form of it, like what did it sound like? All right, so the surface, not the content, but the surface of it, then we won't be able to replicate it. And speaking is replicating the stuff that you have heard before. Speaking is not remembering what your textbook said about the grammar and filling the vocabulary list in it. It's not. It might look like that when you follow a normal course structure, but really, natural speaking, and that's, by the way, why the speaking thing doesn't work for so many people. Natural speaking is recycling, or maybe upcycling, right? Replicating the stuff that you have heard before many times over so that it kind of sank in. Yeah, you picked it up. And I'm observing this thing in real time right now because my sons are getting kind of interested in English, and like I'm tweaking their environment to make them interested, you know. So I'm this linguistic mom, and they have like it's like an audio book where you point with like a special pencil and it speaks, and they have just it's just basically like an example page. It's like a commercial thing that like, do you maybe want to buy this book as well? Yeah, they have a different one, and this one is in English, and they would listen to it. And the younger one, who is 3 years old, right, he would listen to it multiple times, over. He doesn't know what it means. Yeah, some of it he does. It's like, this animal makes that sound, right? It's that level. But sometimes he doesn't know what it means, but he learns to repeat it. Then he comes to me, he's like, Mom, what does this mean? And he repeats the whole sentence, right? And that's how it happens. I don't want you to be like my 3-year-old and not be interested in what it means at all. I'm not saying that. But he is interested in the form, right? He listens as many times over as he needs to be able to repeat it out. And my oldest, he's like, he wants to play Minecraft and it's all in English, right? So he's now watching all these YouTubers and he's watching them for like 20 minutes. He can watch that on the weekend, right? So he would watch like 20 minutes of somebody playing Minecraft and commenting on it in English. And they're like, oh my God, I'm doing all my things. Oh my God, all these zombies coming on me. Yeah. And he doesn't understand most of it. It's way too complicated, right? It's like normal English flow. But he would start repeating things. So first he goes like, oh my God, right? He takes that first. And then he picks up something like a passage, like a random passage that got repeated many times over. And he's like, Mom, what does it mean? Right? So this ability to pick and to isolate, the focus on the form, it's maybe easier for him because he like almost 95% doesn't understand what they talk about, right? So he is like, his mind is free to focus on the form rather than on the contents, because the contents, that's like hopeless for him. But he will speak English before I know it if he continues in this way, right? Because his mindset is in place. He believes he can do it. He has his own motivation of like Minecraft and then like playing the Pokemon cards and things like that. You need to be quite good at English to be able to do that. So he's like, I'm gonna learn it. And now he even said like, I'm gonna start to watch Peppa Pig in English. Now he knows all of it by heart in Norwegian. So now he goes to YouTube and watches it in English, and he's like, Mom, I'm gonna learn English so that I can play Minecraft, right? So he's getting ready for Minecraft by watching Peppa Pig, and it's working for him, right? But the point is, I want you to do the same, yeah? Because if you focus on the contents only, you will disregard the form. Yet the form is the thing you want to repeat, isn't it? Like, people have clever ideas on podcasts, not so much in Peppa Gris maybe, right? But the ideas that people have, that's not interesting for you. Or I mean, if it's interesting, all the better. Yeah, interesting input is the best. But that's not the thing that you want to repeat, right? You have your own clever ideas. You want to repeat their formulations, not their ideas. All right? So bringing your attention towards the formulation and away from the contents only. And I talk about this often. You might have heard me talk about it. It's a little shocking concept sometimes when you first hear it, because really the structure of listening exercises and the testing processes and everything points in the other direction, as in, now you're studying the grammar, now you're doing the listening skills. Yeah, these are like separate. No, they aren't. But when you think of it, I think that like you cannot unsee this once you see it, that it really doesn't make sense to focus on contents only when you listen. But the bridge towards mindfulness, I digress a little bit, which I do a lot, as you might know. The bridge with mindfulness is that if you want to shift your attention from trying to catch the contents, or even imagining what the quiz question might be, stressing about that you didn't understand something, right? Because I have a lot of students who struggle with this initially, that they would watch maybe an series episode or listen to a podcast episode, and they would be stressed all the time. And we are back to managing or noticing your emotions. That's the other level, right? But they would be getting stressed all the time because there was something they didn't understand. They understood half the sentence and not the second half, which throws them off, right? Or they listen to this podcast episode or this TED talk, and they didn't get the main point. And they're like, I have failed. Because if it was a listening exercise in the textbook, not getting the main point of the speakers would be the measure of failure, wouldn't it? But if you understood maybe 60%, not like full sentences, but fragments, right? That's good enough. That's all you need. That's success to me. But shifting your attention from that, like imagining all these quiz questions that might be there, that aren't even there if you're doing it for yourself, but they might be, right? Because there are always quiz questions. If I cannot answer every possible quiz question, I might have failed. And shifting your attention from that mindset and into this, I'm bathing in input, I'm picking phrases, I'm hanging new stuff on the old stuff that I already understand, right? So shifting your focus from the contents and stressing about it and imagining the quiz questions, and into the form, as in like, oh, I recognize this phrase that I saw in my textbook the other day. That is the measure of success, right? If you are using the listening for learning, using it to learn to speak in a natural way and without the omnipresent effort. All right. So, time to sum it up. We spoke about using mindfulness on 3 different levels in learning Norwegian, all of them very important. The first one was using it to notice and maybe to fix your beliefs about yourself. And the non-judgmental component is very, very important in here. Yeah. Let go the belief that you're an idiot. Let go the belief that you're bad at grammar. Just let it go. But to be able to let it go, you first need to notice it, not judge it, and choose your goal of learning Norwegian rather than the drama of not being able to, right? So, and mindfulness is very, very useful when doing this. And maybe it's the only way of doing it, even. Yeah, you can't do it without putting your attention on what is rather than what should be, would be, could be, and being non-judgmental, being an observer. Yeah. Then we talked about the more technical level. Number 1, you have to be a descriptivist about your Norwegian processes. You have to catch this, and this is like actually like the level of the beliefs or and the level of the processes are interconnected, right? There is no clear boundary between that. But you have to be able to describe, to catch your emotions when applying learning techniques, especially listening techniques, because that stresses people out a lot. But even if it's grammar, right? I have students who are very much stressed by grammar studies, and when they start panicking, it's very important to stop and be like, okay, I am panicking. I am getting dysregulated, no judgment, describing it, being able to notice it. My breath is doing whatever, my adrenaline is rising. I think like you can't know it, but I think you feel the rush of like you're getting ready to like run, but run from what? Yeah. So this is the other level that pops up in practical situations when you're trying to study Norwegian or maybe to apply some new techniques such as listening. And then when listening or even when reading, focusing on the form, so shifting your attention from the contents and shifting it on the form, on the phrase level that you want to be replicating later on. And to be able to shift like that, you need a lot of active awareness or even mindfulness. And of course, when doing this, it might be feeding into that other level because there will be resistance, there will be doubt, there will be like relapsing into this of like, but I'm bad with grammar, I'm bad at listening, my ears are like, I can't hear anything, I can't hear the dialects. All of this will be feeding into it. It will be waking up, and it's normal. Yeah. So noticing it and being able to let it go without judging it is very, very important. It's going to help you a great deal. All right, that was it. I'm just going to say at the end that I did some planning, which is a little unusual for me, but I did do it. And I have planned the topics for the next two live streams in October. So on the 23rd of October, there will be a live stream about success at the oral part of Norskprøve. That's not accidental. That's because I know that around that time, I think it's the 22nd, the results from the last run will be published. So I want to talk about that in the aftermath of getting your results home, or maybe deciding whether or not you're going for the next one in December and so on. So I want to talk about that. The 28th is the registration date for the next round as well. I think is the 28th, something around the end of October. So that will be a topical thing that we'll discuss, the like, what does your success in Norskprøve depend on actually. Most people think it depends on like their correctness, their grammar. That is not true. So we'll talk about that. And on the 30th of October, we'll have a Halloween topic. It's going to be fun. And we will talk about the spooky stuff in learning Norwegian. And it sounds funny, but it's actually not funny. It's the stuff that is making it hard for you, the stuff you want to get rid of, like the spooky stuff in yourself, in your Norwegian course, like the things that you really want to get out of your processes. So that's gonna be the Halloween topic then. So welcome. I'll see you hopefully at the same time next week. I will put out an invitation. And as I was saying, I will put the links to the waitlist for Speak Norwegian with Confidence in the comments. The next round will be, I think, sometime during the late spring or maybe towards the summer. I'm not quite sure yet, maybe towards the summer, but it will happen. So I will put the waitlist link down there, and I will put down the link to the self-paced course Dare to Speak Out in Norwegian, which is about speaking techniques and about the mindset things. So if you want to dive deeper on the topics such as this one, I really recommend that course. That's self-paced, and you can do it anytime. And it does include a consultation with me as well at the end. So you can also ask questions during the course. So that's that. All right. Very nice chatting to you today. I'm really happy that you joined me live. And if you're watching from the replay, feel free to leave any questions under. I'll have a look at them. Hopefully, I will get a notification as well, and I will catch them sooner than after 2 weeks. But hopefully, I will. I'll be checking. And see you next week for the for the Norskprøve topic. That's an important one as well. Ha det så bra. See you!